DRB meeting for the city of Essex Junction to order, please. April 20th, 2013. First item on the agenda is additions or amendments to the agenda. Anything, Chris?
No, we don't have anything.
All right. Public to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Now's your chance.
We have one person who has sent an email and he would like his message to be heard here. I can read it out loud.
Please.
This is a message from Rich Callahan, an Essex Junction resident. He says, "Hello, I'm an Essex Junction resident and regular bike commuter to Burlington. I'm hoping this email may be submitted as an official public comment, as I am unable to attend the DRB meeting coming Thursday. My comment is in regard to the new handy building that is nearing completion on Route 15. This is a building now having a sign that is labeled Handy Boulevard, Gabe Handy on the side facing the road. They have erected 2 white privacy fences on either side of the building lot. They look to be 6 to 8 feet tall. The privacy fence on the west side of the building / adjacent to the driveway extends right up to the sidewalk. This creates a blind spot for any user of the public sidewalk who is heading east from Susie Wilson Road, where they can't see a car exiting the building driveway until it's on top of them. Can this be mitigated for public safety? Is there a city ordinance which can be enforced with handy to improve the visibility here? Examples, including a mirror, shortening the height of the fence panels near the sidewalk, etc. Thanks so much and appreciate any follow-up feedback you may have. Rich Callahan."
Nice. Does staff have any comments? Because I know other communities have sort of a visibility triangle where you have entrances and so forth. Do we have that?
So yes, I have reviewed this case. One of the fences is within the visibility triangle, but it was a non-conformity that was there before. We don't have. We aren't able to require that it be changed. The fence on the other side. So there's 2 things at play. There's a visibility triangle, and there's also fences within the front setback. According to the LDC, the fences on the front setback are not supposed to exceed 29 inches in height if they're not transparent. But there was one new proposed fence on the east side, and my predecessor didn't notice that, it was approved as it. Either ways, it doesn't go all the way up to the sidewalk. There is at least 10 feet between the sidewalk and the fence. But I have reached out to the developer there and asked nicely if they could do something about it.
Good. I think there are probably some teeth we can use about compliance with the LDC anyway, that even if it's not written down on the, if somebody didn't catch it, let's see what we can find out. Gabe's usually very amenable to making sure it's okay. Anything else?
Not from online. Just a reminder, I do have the online public.
Yeah, will you take care of that part for us? Thanks.
Okay. This is a hybrid meeting held both at 2 Lincoln Street and on Zoom. Because there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by using the chat feature on Zoom or by emailing cyen@essexjunction.org. And in the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary on May 18th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at 2 Lincoln Street, Essex Junction. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance to the law. As required by the open meeting law, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of all members participating in this meeting and have those members attending remotely identify themselves to ensure that they can hear and be heard throughout the meeting.
I assume you mean board members
Yes.
for that, right? So John Alden present.
Rob Mount, present.
Maggie Massey, present.
But we also mean anybody that's joining remotely as members of the public should say who they are as well, so that we can have them on record. So I see online right now there's a Colin Johnson, and there's another person who is dialed in with no without a name. Please add your name if you can, or speak up and state your name. Well, it looks like they're not able to chime in at this moment, so I think we can move on.
All right. We have next is the minutes of February 16th, 2023. Board members, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All right. Any comments or corrections, updates? No? All in favor of the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the public hearing number 1. Final site plan to renovate second floor of 2-story building into 6 one-bedroom apartments at 1 Jackson Street in the MCU district by Fat Tire LLC, Ron LaFountain and Christy Wilds, owners. You can come up to the table if you wish. I'll just remind the board that I announced a potential conflict of interest at the last meeting. That's still the same, but didn't seem to matter. So, any questions about that again? That you need me to go through that again?
I wasn't here, but I
Oh,
saw it briefly mentioned in the minutes.
okay. Questions?
No.
All right. We'll do the oath part for people testifying project by project. So I'll ask you to answer in the affirmative. I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the course under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So you're here for final. Staff has a report. Staff, do you want to go through the project and the report, and then we'll hear from the applicant?
Sure, do that. Okay. So you all have looked through the report, so I assume I can just go over issues, the highlighted portions. If you have any questions or comments along the way, please say so. But yeah, this project is within the mixed commercial use district, and the project is consistent with the purpose of this district, and many of the dimensional requirements are not relevant in this case because no building, no new structure is being proposed. This is really a renovation of an existing building. In terms of parking requirements, that we're satisfied that the Section 703 requirements are met. No problem with building height.
If we're following along on the notes here, and I'm assuming that the applicants have the notes as well, the first thing that is sort of not closed is the bike racks. Maybe we can just we should be able to breeze through most of it because we saw this and talked
Yeah.
about everything before.
I'll actually update that the bike racks actually have been included in there. The area is drawn in the foyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I may have missed that on my first look through of this.
Okay, so that's all taken care of now. Lighting, we still have an open lighting question.
That's correct. So yes, lighting is has been updated, but the latest updates are a little too bright to and the uniformity ratio exceeds what is specified in the LDC, which means that as designed and as submitted, there would be two very bright spots, and the rest by the building, and the rest of the parking lot will be sufficiently bright, but not. But there'll be a big contrast.
Mm-hmm.
The applicant has mentioned that they might have some comments about that. Right? Did you have any more thoughts on that?
Yes, I have. We have in front of the building where we have stalled wall packs because it's an existing structure, existing paved, getting into underground and poles and all that. We've and also due to the 16-foot limitation on installation of light fixtures, it's been difficult to get a perfect light fixture that would give you no trespass, but enough light along the border, and then and also not too hot underneath the fixture. So it's the foot candle levels are driven largely by height and not just lumens. And so that has been a challenge. The last design we had not enough coverage in some areas and some trespass, and so we've tried to dial it back. And light fixtures lumens are in large 2,000 lumen blocks. So
Are we talking about light fixtures that are currently on the building and there already?
no,
Or
these
these
would be new.
new
There are none on the north side of the building facing to our right here. So and it would be lighting fixtures that would be required to kind of cover that area between Adam Geraldson's lot and our property, and then the railroad is of course to the left. So we've even avoided trespass onto their property as much as possible. So, I had Chris had presented an option of possibly coming back with a lighting design change that might address this hotspot concern. I ran into an issue with my supplier who's doing the lighting design. They were closed down for inventory, and so I had no resource available to me to actually do it. I believe that there's an option to select a fixture of the right lumen package and photometrics to kind of get a better spread. On the corner right by the J and Jackson Street, there's a brand new pole, Green Mountain Power would have a light fixture there, brand new LED, same thing that they use all throughout the city. And that has helped that corner with light levels. It's not as dark in that corner. That arborvitae hedge is quite tall. It's probably 25 or 30 feet high and pretty bushy. So it absorbs a lot of light off the pole. they originally said, hey, we'll put it at 32 feet. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That sounds like what you would normally do with a street light. But then it came back in the review that you can't go above 16. So we lowered it to 16 feet. And that's kind of changed the lighting distribution in that corner, obviously, because now you've got a pretty powerful street light up there. We did kind of dumb it down a little to help mitigate the best we could.
So, but I'm looking at the lumens, the mapping here, and it looks like it's really the front, right next to your building that's hot, which
Yeah.
if I was going to have a safety area, that's probably where I'd want it anyway. But I guess I would suggest that you continue to work with staff to get a fixture that's,
Okay.
or shielding, or, drop the power down a little bit or something.
Yep.
Is that acceptable? I
Um,
mean, they haven't put them on yet. The rest
Right.
of the parking lot is pretty good. You're way down. It's just right there by the building, and I always like the front door to be a little brighter anyway. So
So I see several ways this could go. I suppose the applicant might be able to find a different fixture that spreads the light out a little bit better and isn't as bright right under there. It may also be possible just to turn down the intensity and accept the fact that at the edge of the parking lot on the other side,
Where the garage.
yeah,
basically where right here,
yeah,
it might just get a little bit too dim for our specifications. So there's a potential for a trade-off there, and it would if it came down to that, I think it would be helpful if the DRB had some direction on if that is acceptable, if it was necessary.
I would feel comfortable with it being with the light tapering off to the north, and not being maybe quite so hot right at the
And we are going, and is it safe to assume that we would stick with the 16-foot restriction on those light fixtures?
I don't know that we have any justification for doing anything differently, except I will say that my recollection of the existing lights on the poles over there, they're way higher than 16 feet.
Yeah, like we have a lot across the street that we have a long-term lease with the city on, that it's just an empty lot that we use, and there were light fixtures installed there that are 32 feet.
Right.
Probably. I didn't measure them, but they're not 15.
So again, I'd work with staff and the public works to figure out
Yeah.
what's appropriate, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm assuming that going to GMP and putting a pole light on there under there is acceptable way of solving this lighting. It's not a real,
Yeah,
it's
right.
kind of a
Is
weird
it your?
box
It's
shape.
not your light. It's their light.
Well, we would pay for it. It's like a fixed flat number per month. You just pay an electric bill and they put a light up for you. Yeah. It complies with all the dark sky and
Yeah.
they're,
All right. Any other comments from the board? All right. Continuing on with after the lighting, we got to. They made a recommendation about maintaining the existing curb cut, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
If anyone else has a comment, okay. I think the issue on encroachment went away. Dumpsters, I can't imagine. Are there any new dumpsters proposed because of this?
no, we've got
Yeah.
plenty of dumpster over
Yeah.
there for the whole property.
so that's
and
not really a
a shared
thing.
communal thing. And it's in an enclosure. The dumpsters have lids, they have plugs in them. It's got a screen around it, so at least the neighbors don't have to look at a dumpster. And there's a gate on it that's also screened. And
So the
pretty nice dumpster, really.
nice dumpster. As dumpsters go. I guess it's really the screening and buffering, I think, is the biggest item that I think we were concerned about in the sense that at least for me, it was more of a suggestion that as this turns residential instead of commercial, that the residents, the tenants might expect more landscaping and not necessarily to buffer them from the surrounding commercial, because that's the opposite way that the code is written. The code says you have to buffer the commercial stuff from the residential, so you're really going the other direction, but it's more of an amenity like the bike rack, so it's not written that way in the code. So I'm still going to suggest that somebody wants to see some flowers out there. It could be one of your tenants, I don't know, but I'm not really concerned that the project itself isn't proposing more landscaping from the point of view of the land development code, and I just wondered how the other board members felt about that. I mean, it's a building that's already there, that's a fit up inside,
Yeah.
and it's just a change of use that even begins the conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add on that. You know, I don't disagree with you, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a requirement either for a tenant to come in and say, oh, I want
You
some
look
flowers
across
over
the
here.
street, you see, or no, you look across your parking lot and you see the whatever happens in the right of way for the railroad.
They're right next to the railroad tracks. Whoever lives here is going to really have to love trains.
I mean, this building's the best looking building in the area,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So,
Oh, I get you.
It's come a long ways.
yeah.
I understand.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's the building.
Yeah, there's a power line
Oh,
across the
street.
parking lot. It's-
But that must be, that's before it was renovated because there's a lot more trees between the railroad and the property.
It's
It might just be.
once a year.
Okay, all right, got
It's
it.
Google attempting to turn it into a 3D image.
I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, there's a lot of scrub and a lot of, trees and, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty naked there, but there is a
Yeah.
lot of foliage along that track. You know, our issue with that is, and I'm happy to put plantings in if that's needed. We have one strip of grass right there. It's a triangle.
Yeah.
We've got pavement, and then we got a building. And as you all remember, the property line for the railroad cuts off the front corner of the building on the bottom there, and it also cuts off the other corner. So the building actually is over the property line. It's been like that for probably 140 years.
Yeah.
When it was built, it was that way. There used to be more spurs between the building. That grassy area is not quite as nice looking as it is on that screen, but the railroad's property line is right up to the edge of that building.
Yeah, I would even suggest you could put some potted plants or something. Just your tenants are the ones that are gonna benefit from this.
Yeah.
It's not the next door neighbors.
Sure.
They're
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it has ornamental grasses right now in front of where the residents, both entrances, the residents would go in and in front of our office, which I need to cut down. So those are actually nice. And then last year I had thought about maybe planting some sunflowers and stuff like that. So we might do something like that just to, I like to leave some of the grassy areas just for like people have dogs and stuff. Those are nice areas to walk and,
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for that little patch of grass we have there, at least we can use that for the barbecuing requests that might come.
yeah, and
or
then,
the-
and against the arborvitaes, they can use some of that, I think, too.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a comment on that? No. new
John, do you
sign.
see this as a requirement or a suggestion?
Yeah, they might.
I see it as a suggestion.
Yeah.
I really don't see it as a
From when you're there.
requirement. I don't see how we can require them to buffer themselves from something worse. Well, but they can buffer themselves from something worse, but they don't owe it to the other surrounding neighbors to buffer. All right, so I'm pretty much done with the review as far as I can tell. Does anyone else on the board or Chris, do you have anything else before we get into the stipulations and so forth?
I do not have anything else.
Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none. I'm fine with staff's recommendations. I think we've determined that we don't need, we want them to continue to work on the lighting plan. That was the only one, but staff is capable and willing to make a determination that favors the lessening the hot spot for possibly a little less light at the north edge. We are recommending that landscaping and vegetation suitable for residential applications be considered by the applicant. And all the proposed stipulations are okay. Is that a motion, or can I get somebody to make?
I don't remember the words.
All right. Did you get that? You have it recorded, right? Can
It's
we,
a-
can
it's
we
all
turn
recorded.
that into a motion? I so move. Do I have a second?
Seconded and thirded.
Do I have any more discussion?
No.
No. All right. All in favor of that, of the motion as made, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. John didn't bring his.
Well, I was just I was over there. I'm over there regularly because I recreate next door. I know the place pretty well. All right, so we're up to public hearing number 2, final site plan of the Village at Autumn Pond Phase 2 for a PUD redeveloped Amber Lantern apartment. Construct 3 buildings, 39 units each, with underground parking at 169 Autumn Pond Way in the MF2 district by Trudell Consulting Engineers, agent for Amber Lantern LLC, care of Jeff Rubin, owner. Some of you are at the table here. I have, why don't you introduce yourselves, and then I'll make you, take the oath.
I'm Lucy Thayer, landscape architect with Trudell Consulting Engineers.
Lucy?
I'm Alan Spencer with Rabideau Architects, project architect.
Thank you,
And
Alan.
also Colin Johnson is online as well.
Oh, good. So, Colin, you're part of this.
Yes, I am.
All right. So, in the affirmative, I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. All right. And if anyone in the audience ends up speaking, you'll be subject to the same rules. Okay. All right. Great. Well, I'm going to switch it up this time and let you guys present first. And have at it. Let us know what you're doing with phase 2, and just for my own clarification, because I was around for phase 1, the phase 1 approval notes, which we did get a copy of, indicated there's a phase 3 coming. Is that still the case, or is this is it?
No, that's not in the discussion at this time.
Okay, so we'll just work on what's called phase 2, and
Yeah.
if something else happens, we'll hear about it later.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, great.
All right. Maybe I'm not sure who's running the screen, but maybe a site plan, an overall site plan, the C, maybe 200 or 201 would be useful just to have on the screen.
Okay, it will take me a minute to pull that up, but I will put it up.
All right. Well, while that happens, I will start just to tell you about what we're proposing. So just a brief overview. Some of this is in the staff notes, but it's a 9.7 acre parcel in the MF2 district. When you see the site plan, and as you've seen in your review, we're proposing 3 buildings with a total of 39 units in each building for 117 total rental units proposed with the project. Those include a mix of 1 bedroom and den, and 2 bedroom. Kind of contextually, we've got in space, we have Essex High School to the east, the Tree Farm Soccer Complex is to the west, Autumn Pond Phase 1 is to the north. Okay. And then Old Colchester Way is to the south, and that's quite a ways away. It's about like over 700 feet to the south. So our buildings are oriented in a kind of Z configuration, and that's to maximize views to the natural features. So those natural features and natural resource constraints include wetlands, and those are to the east of the project. You're getting very close, very sort of almost there. So we have wetlands to the east, kind of on the Essex High School side. Yep, there we go. That's great. With a stream, and then there's also wetlands on both sides of Autumn Pond Way as you approach the project. The footprint of the project has been contained to the existing developed footprint, so we're not expanding that at all. That development area is remaining the same. The project is really well buffered from off-site because of existing mature vegetation between the high school, Old Colchester Way, also the tree farm to the west, and there is vegetation also existing between Autumn Pond Phase 1 and Phase 2. So like you mentioned, Autumn Pond Phase 2 is an extension of the Autumn Pond Phase 1 project, which has been a highly successful residential development. And one of the great things about this project is that all of the amenities that are available to the Phase 1 users that exist now are also going to be available to this new project. And those include a heated in-ground pool, community room, fitness center, private dog park, fire pit, outdoor barbecue grills, on-site management, and walking trails. So pretty nice set of amenities. The Phase 2 development has got outdoor seating areas, grills, walking trails, connections, access to the tree farm area. Parking on the site is underground. So under each of the buildings, there is underground parking that's accessed from the east side, the lower parking area, which worked really well with the natural grades. And the rest of the parking is at grade surface level parking. So that's kind of the high level overview of it. And if you have any questions, we can certainly get into that as we go forward.
Thank you. Alan, do you want to explain? The buildings aren't really part of the review phase, but they're still good looking. You might as well talk about them, right?
We tried to do something a little bit different from Phase 1, but yet in a complementary nature. Different colors. Main building itself is more of a muted earth tone scheme with maybe just a little splash of color on some of the bump outs on the building. But overall, it's meant to kind of blend into the natural surroundings more. But yeah, like you said, it's not a major divergent from what we did in Phase 1 because it was a highly successful project.
Chris, if you can pull up an elevation, that would be great. There was a height question, and you're asking for a height waiver, and I know you can't see these from anywhere, so I'm not concerned about it at all. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go visit the site, but it's 700 feet away from the nearest road, and you can't see any of these buildings unless you know they're there and you go looking for them. But that said, this overall site is beautifully developed, and I can't imagine. This is a flagship development for our community, in my opinion, and it hits all the bells and whistles that we ask people to hit. So nice work, everybody, and we thank you for that. When you're asking for the height waiver, though, it's our prerogative to say yes or no based on a couple of factors, and I think have you guys read the staff notes in detail? You know all about all that? Okay. So I think what I'd like to do, if you don't have any more comments, we'll just go through the staff notes and we can talk about the things that are essentially like the last application still open, unless anybody has something else they want to bring up. So there you have, so the trees are all, the existing trees are very mature. Are they taller than the buildings? They're probably 50, 60 feet tall, aren't they?
You mean in the wetland?
Well, no, just in the surrounding the whole development.
Yeah, it's a mature canopy.
Yeah. So even with a fourth story, they're not taller than things around them. That's my point. All right, but we don't really have the building design under our purview, so this is just for fun. Shall I lead everyone through the staff notes?
You want a motion, or do you just want me to say yes?
No, I just want.
Yes, please.
All right. So they're asking for two waivers. One is the height, which we kind of just discussed. I have no problem with the height. Does anyone have a problem with the height?
No.
Okay. The second waiver is for parking spaces. That's usually a little more of a discussion. However, in this case, they have phase one to point to. I will ask the applicant, there's a couple of things. One, in phase one, there were 53 spaces that were not built. And it says in the notes that we were going to do a parking study after a couple of years to see whether or not they were needed. And I'm guessing if anybody knows whether you needed those spaces, the number of years that have occurred is, and your tenants are going to tell us whether they were needed. So how is that first phase gone?
It's going very well. So we actually did do a parking analysis for this project in request of the waiver, and Roger Dickinson did that for
Yep.
us, premier traffic engineer. And he found that what we're proposing is absolutely adequate and consistent with what's built there as it exists. And in fact, there are some additional spaces. So if there were ever a need for overflow, that those spaces do exist.
So did you ever build the additional 53 spaces that were not built in phase one?
We built like 35 or 36 of those.
Okay.
I don't think we did all 52. I think it was hard to remember 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But we did a good portion of those, and we surely do have a surplus. Because we have empty spaces on.
Yeah, and that's fine. And then, so we don't want you to overbuild them either. So we know Roger does a great job with those. You're looking for basically 1.75 spaces per apartment, which in my experience is more than adequate for generally one bedroom units, one bedroom and a den. And if you know you have extra spaces already, I certainly am not going to make you build more. Anyone else question on the parking? Chris, do you have any further comment on parking?
No, I don't.
All right. Let's see. We did the waiver. I wondered if you could talk to us about the road, the access road. So the first phase, the access road seemed to be a big deal. Everybody had something to say about it. I've heard nothing in 7 years about the road. I use the road. I'm always on a bicycle. I don't drive through there, or cross-country skis. And I've never seen more than one car at a time on the road. So I'm wondering if there's any information about the road that you can provide to us that would say that A, it's not operating safely and well. I mean, do we have any traffic accidents or pedestrian, anybody complaining about the road in 7 years? I've heard nothing. Anybody? Right? So you're widening the road. There was a request for a sidewalk, which is kind of standard. The road goes through wetlands and it's narrower than it wants to be, but the idea is you don't really have the ability to make a sidewalk next to the road. So I think the way I understand the proposal is that you will widen the road, and there was some discussion of striping, which would have the effect of providing guidelines for the vehicles, so there might be a walking area. Is that
That's
reasonable?
correct. Yeah, so we did widen it to the DPW standard of 28 feet wide.
Already?
Yes, that's what's proposed, and that was what was included in our state wetland permit, and so that's all set, and we're happy to do that. And then the request for the 4 foot, basically a 4 foot shoulder on either side, as we understand the staff notes.
And I'll just go over because that is something that I put in over the last week when I did a site visit there. Yeah, at 28 feet, the lane widths are probably then at the kind of widths where it would encourage faster driving, which is the opposite of what we want. Yeah, by adding in the striping, it would visually narrow it and provide the space for cyclists and pedestrians that would.
Is there a center stripe, like two yellow lines or anything? This is almost like the road really doesn't deserve two stripes.
And I will, right, and
Maybe one, but
as staff, I wouldn't recommend adding a center stripe just because the current evidence shows that the ambiguity of not having a center line actually tends to get drivers to slow down a little bit.
I've never seen a single line around here anyway.
no, that's not a thing.
I saw it when I lived in Canada. It was there, but not
Yeah,
down here.
every once in a while you see it. Was it the real? I mean, the only people really using this are the residents. I mean, or maybe the occasional visitor and deliveries and so forth. Yeah. And I just asked all those questions because there was a lot of excitement about this road during phase one, and it's been there for a long time now, and the upgrades have happened to most of the project already. And if there was something going on, we would hear about it. And there's nothing going on, as far as I can tell. There's nothing going on, so I'm not going to get excited about the road. Yes, Mr. Rubin.
Let me comment, the excitement was because we put an emergency road into Athens Drive.
Yeah, that was a lot more excitement.
And
Yeah,
that's what the excitement, because they wanted to make that a boulevard,
yeah,
rather than a single road, so that they wouldn't have the emergency, entrance into their road. And that was about a 3-year fight.
yeah.
To establish the emergency. Originally, when I came in front of this committee, they wanted a through road. Mark Tebow was pushing for a through road right there, which was not practical at that point. I committed to the Athens Drive people that I would not put a through road. I would do a development with a through road there. So we walked away for 2 years.
Mhm.
And then we came back and people still didn't trust me. And they thought going to sneak in through road, and the Robin at that point said, I think an emergency road would be sufficient, and that road with the issue. And that was really where much of the discussion was over the use of that road as a boulevard to give two ins and outs, because they didn't want to use their road for in and out. But the only time we ever used that road as an in and out was in their benefit. They had a tree fall on their road and they couldn't get out. So we opened it up so they could use it through us.
Yeah.
So in these 7 years, it's the only time we've used it.
And I guess I would continue that the lack of anyone from Athens Drive at today's hearing would suggest that they're perfectly happy over there. So I think that worked out well. I think the access road has ended up being fine. I haven't experienced any, in my own personal use of that area, I've never seen anything that even begins to look like a problem. So I would be in favor of the proposal as written, I guess, where there's some, I don't know if you stripe both sides, but maybe it helps keep the cars on the road and contained, but there are plenty of sidewalk situations in the village city now that they only have a sidewalk on one side of the street.
If you're going to stripe it as a shoulder,
You stripe
I
them
would
both.
say you should stripe both sides because it also is going to be used by cyclists.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I like that as a solution to any further discussion on improvements to the road. The lighting of the road is the next item that's kind of out there. I guess I could say that I haven't been there at dark. My time spent has been during daylight. Again, I would have the same questions. Has there been any issues? The people tend to think they should be lit. I'm kind of saying it I don't know that it needs to be lit.
Yeah, I don't think people are walking down this street from Colchester Road. They're driving a car.
Yeah, well, let's just say they were. At least, I mean, now if you have stripes on the road, at least I'm hoping they're the reflective paint and all that, right? So you can see them. Keeps the cars from
Well, I
getting
mean,
people.
reflective stripes tend to not be reflective after a while, but
Just one snowy season. You're done.
but what I would say from a staff perspective in terms of people, nobody walking along there, I don't think that is true. Just given the fact that it is, especially in the winter, it would be the shortest path going into town. Anybody that wants to get into town to use transit or for shopping or to get to the school would be likely to use the road at least some of the time. And without lighting at all in the woods, there would probably be times where they would have to take out their cell phones and light the way, or at least try to stay safe from people running into them.
Yeah, but it's been that way for how long is my point. It's been that way for a long time. If absent any evidence that it's unsafe or produces I mean, of course we might all wish it was lit. I just don't. I'm trying to get to the point where we either say it has to be lit or it doesn't have to be lit.
I would say it also could be the case of trying to evaluate whether or not you need a bridge based on how many people are swimming across the river. If it's very dark there and not pedestrian friendly, you're unlikely to get anyone using it. But also, there are pedestrian paths. They are out of the way. I think in terms of people just walking for recreation, walking their dogs, I don't see them any reason why they would use Autumn Pond Road, but I can see a transportation utility for people who are walking along here to get into town.
Has there been any discussion by the residents that they wish it was lit, or what have you heard?
I meet with the residents. Also have suites, guys want to join and listen to them. And never hear a complaint. The only issue we deal with is occasionally some of our tenants like the speed, so we have speed bumps there too. Especially around the curve, to slow them down. That's the only issue I've heard. I've owned that road since 1980, and I've never had any accidents on that road or any personal injuries. The primary reason why people walk down that road is to get to the bus. And I would love to get the bus come up to Autumn Pond. There's going to be 800 people living there. And if the bus came up, they don't walk to school there because there's a pathway in the back that they use to get to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not mainly the kids that do it. The people, they can't do much shopping, so they have to carry it back. It's getting to the bus, which is about 6 cents to 7 cents a mile from us. So if we somehow could get a bus stop at Autumn Pond, that would really eliminate probably 90% of the walking on that road. And it's very minimal. I'm out there 3 or 4 times a week, and I almost never see someone walking the road.
They're going to need to be able to turn around. Is there space for them to for a bus to turn around?
Well, you probably wouldn't get CCTA there, but
So
Yeah.
that fire truck,
you might be able to get SSTA there, but I doubt you'd get the, what do they call the thing now, the big one?
GTMA.
GTMA.
GM.
They won't even go to
GM.
Tilly Drive, so, there's no way they're going.
It's unlikely that that GMT would have fixed route service going up there because it's a dead end. Given that the emergency road is now an emergency road, and the out of direction travel for transit buses would likely
we have school buses that come in, kids.
Oh, school.
They have to-
Right. No, there's no problem with turning around. It's just in terms of as a fixed route, it wouldn't work well for ridership and the use of driving time, because for the people that don't live there, any bus that goes in there would be extra time on the trip. I used to be a public transit planner
Yeah.
like previously.
So it doesn't make sense for the bus route. They'd have to show an inordinate amount of ridership before it would make any sense at all.
That's right.
Yeah. I asked some questions sort of offline. Like, I don't see any information in the staff report about police or fire or my understanding is they all have a chance to comment on these plans if they wish. And
Yeah.
and I don't see any comments, so that means they're happy or
They're happy with it.
not unhappy enough to comment. So I mean it for me it falls into the category of fixing a problem that doesn't exist. That's the way I see it, you know. I don't know there's a problem. Any other comment on lighting? We'll probably come back to it after.
I will, yeah, I wanted to say that, right now there's no lights, right?
Yeah.
And if you throw some lights on that street, you're going to start lighting it up in the middle of the night and maybe attracting more attention to that street that you wouldn't otherwise want. And it's set back so far, it looks like it just blends in with the woods, which is, I think, ideal the way that it is now. And I don't, I would lean towards no change, just
So-
to keep it the way that it is.
Just in case you guys didn't remember 7 years ago, this is 2014, so it's really 9. The language in the approval at the time of phase 1 was the lighting shall be removed from the emergency access road, which had been proposed for that. And it is recommended that the applicant consider street lights on Thasha Lane, now called Auto Pond Way, as the neighborhood grows in density and popularity in the future. So that was how it was worded back then. Consider streetlights as it gets.
Did you bring those out of your personal file?
Yeah, he hurt his
No.
back on his way in.
I know they exist, and I asked Chris to find them.
Okay.
It was included in the email that's
Oh, the
I made
follow-up.
it up. Yeah, the follow-up. Yeah.
I did have that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not that bad. But there's some longevity here, so hopefully it helps. But the point is, we went through this once. We came up with a way to say, keep it on the table, think about it. I still like that approach. If at some point street lights look like a good idea, I'm sure somebody will put them in. But absent anybody actually asking for them, except the LDC, I have no strong desire to make them happen.
I agree with that approach. I think I would be more pro lights with like the idea of trying to promote a more walkable culture and the ability to walk to those places. But I absolutely agreed with your statement
I
on
think you got to remember what my opening statement was. I recreate here, and I do that because Tree Farm is an amazing resource, and the trail network all around there, including in and out of this development, is amazing. It's just really good, and it's good for all times of the year, and it gets a fairly decent ongoing use, not just residents, and I'm sure the residents are even more excited about it, but other people use it all the time. That said, the only reason I would think about it was if there was a safety issue, and I'm just not hearing one. So I'm happy to leave it alone. Okay, so that's the lights. There was a question from staff on stormwater drainage inside the subsurface parking areas due to snow melting from vehicles. Maybe a quick comment on that, like what happens in your other buildings and does it really?
Oh, we've been doing this a long time, doing a lot of underground parking, and honestly, we never had it come up from a client as being an issue. The inside garage slabs are sloped positively to drain outside or negatively to drain outside. We provide catch basins or trench drains at the building entries to catch that flow, and it really has never come up as being an issue.
So underground, the underground parking, if there is water in there, where does it drain?
It drains toward the building entrance, the garage entrance.
And then the building
I see.
has positive drainage, so it goes, there's catch basins outside of
Yeah.
building one.
And the parking and drives actually slope away from the building. So anything anything at that entrance is going to drain to the south towards the parking lot and then be collected and in the catch basins in the parking lot.
Generally, we struggle with water coming into the garage from the outside, whereas this project, with the way the grading works, we're actually in a better situation than we normally are. I don't see it becoming a potential issue.
Has that ever, anything with the parking, underground parking ever come up on your Wednesday coffee hour?
Chilling is, we never had one. We have storage down there too, and the only issue was when we had some bike.
Yeah.
That's the only issue. And so we're putting bike rooms in these new buildings. Trying to decrease the vulnerability, and we took our laundries in our present buildings and made them into bike rooms. But that was the only issue we ever had with the garage, is that debris that's not in Essex right now, but used to be in Essex, that was stealing bikes up, through the night. They would cut the cages and get in.
Wow. Okay. Bicycle access is on the list, but it got checked off as being resolved. Talked about the, what's this building, there was a comment from staff about building 3 and lighting around the proposed sidewalk there. Chris, do you want to just tell us what that was about?
Maybe if we looked at the C, 201, or that would help understand the context.
Yeah, let me just. So this would be in the main plan set thing?
Yeah, it should just be a few, I'm not sure what's going on right now, but it's probably backwards from here.
Oh,
In the- Yeah, this is a good plan to look at. So building 3 is on the top right, and the area in question is east of that.
Is this a good?
Yeah, that's
zoom and stuff?
or maybe,
I can zoom in.
yeah, I might go one back. I think this is the grading plan. No, other one is got a little more.
Yeah, so we're talking about this sidewalk over here, this path over here. So, if I understand correctly, that is there's no proposed lighting along there. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what was your reasoning behind that?
So this path is for internal circulation. It's not an access point. Folks are not typically going to come in here. It kind of leads to the back of the building. So this is really a meandering path to be used for residents, and we want to keep it kind of low key, low light. We're trying to be sensitive to light levels, and we just didn't think that was a place that needed to be lighted at night, year round. So I think it also poses some potential winter maintenance issues. So we felt that since it's not a primary path or a path used for access, that it didn't needed to be lighted because all of those other areas are lighted.
So we would call that more of a primitive path for seasonal use, or am I seeing landscape boulders and
There are landscapes, so there is some.
you have a butterfly garden or something back there?
Yeah. It is an asphalt path, but it is just meant for more of a meandering stroll. You take your dogs. It's not meant for any ingress or egress. It's to the buildings.
I'm fine with it being natural. Well, it's probably paved so that it's accessible to everybody and not
That's right.
lovely. Anyone else have a question on that?
No.
Comment? All the rest of my comments from the staff report seem to be related to widening the road, which we already talked about. There's a tree that's somewhere
Yes, it's
too
one
close
tree.
to a water line.
Yeah, that was that will be removed or moved out of the 10 feet. That was a mistake.
All right. I have nothing else. Board members,
I'm good.
Chris? Anything else?
1 second, let me just look through this.
Good forward.
I'm good.
TOARD. Yeah. All right.
I'm good.
Are there any comments from the visitors in the audience? None. No more. All right. I guess we can close the public hearing and talk about what we want to do. All right, so the recommendation, I'm just going to go through the notes here. The recommendation on considering the waiver, we are granting the waiver for the height. We are granting the waiver for the parking based on the evidence presented. We looked at improvements to the road. We decided that widening the road and adding the line striping on the shoulders is ideal and adequate. And I would like to add basically the same note that we had about lighting the street that we used in the first approval of phase 1, that basically pushes the decision off until there's some striking reason to do something about it. And so far, I don't think we've hit that level.
I would say to that as a city, we will not have leverage to require anything beyond once it's built. But that's
So is there a way to have leverage, but that's more like the city reserves the right to revisit the lighting and require it should a safety impact be identified?
I am not. I would have to. I would have to look into that. I can't give you an answer. If we have a mechanism of doing that after issuing a CO.
I tend to agree with you. It's tricky to make a recommendation and have anybody do anything about it. But we have the ability to waive the lighting though, right? I mean, that was my only technical question is, do we physically have the ability to waive the lighting.
I believe you have the ability to waive the lighting requirements. Yes.
Um,
It's not technically a waiver. You would be looking at the plans and saying it is sufficient.
What if we continue on with the old way we say it? Maybe it holds up, maybe it doesn't.
Well,
it won't hold up.
Say
It-
You know.
but
well,
it makes us feel better.
That's fine.
it could be a recommendation. I mean that's what it would be. You could recommend that the applicant keep an eye on that and voluntarily address the issue if it comes up.
All right. Well, that's the only stipulation that I would add to the proposed stipulation, so we can make it number 12. And I guess what I'll do is I will move that we approve the project as presented with granting the two waivers for lighting and height based on the evidence.
Parking.
Parking height. Thank you. And we will include all the proposed stipulations and add number 12, which shall read, the board recommends that the applicant consider streetlights on Autumn Pond Way as the neighborhood grows in density and popularity, or a safety impact is noticed. So there'd have to be some real evidence that says you gotta have lights. That's my feeling. So, new item 12. Otherwise, granting the two waivers and approving with the proposed stipulations, including new number 12.
Come up.
You're
Nope.
seconding.
I'm seconding. Yes, seconding.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all so much. Wish you
Thank you.
every happiness with phase 2 because we're all happy.
I thought there were some upset people in the audience. A lot of people.
There's a lot of people.
I'll explain why they're not upset later.
They're fans of our work.
All right, so what have we got left here?
Other development.
Other development review board items. The only one I have, it's related to the current Senate Bill S-100. And Vermont League of Cities and Towns has been, they've been exercising some, they've been against some of the parts of the bill because it basically allows the state to come in and with a blanket statement change our zoning that we've spent so many years working on, and only in certain particular cases. And some of it's good, like when they're going to say that I think one of the trade-offs is if you're a designated village center, which we are. Are we a city center automatically because now we're a city?
Yes.
No, it's
Just
still
make a motion.
It's still a village
Village
but
center.
it's
Um,
functionally
They're trying to make sure that if it has to do with how Act 250 applies, and so if you have created rules that apply to zoning to a certain area, many people have felt over the years that Act 250 should not apply because you've already got your rules. You've studied it. This is what we want. And so I think that's the trick is to, is to kind of say where those designated areas, growth centers and village centers and so forth are identified and part of your town plan or village plan or city plan, then Act 250 can be not a second way, you know, a tier of review. So we like that one, and so does Vermont League of Cities and Towns, but they don't like the ones that say if you have a sewer, you know, if you're on a sewer line, you basically will have higher density. So if you have one house now, you're gonna have 2 or 3 or whatever it is. There's a whole formula for it, and so local communities in some cases have been really upset about it because, you know, we spent years writing our zoning rules, and now some of the parts of the bill are gonna just say, you know, never mind. We're gonna tell you how it is. So that's been a little bit of an issue. I don't know, Chris, have you been following that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Senate Bill 100 is likely to directly impact how our land development code amendments, our LDC amendments actually are quite similar to what S100 as written would require in terms of increased densities in all areas. It would just be adjusting one number a notch further from triplexes to fourplexes, and I think it should be. I think everyone should be clear that just because something is zoned for fourplexes doesn't mean you're likely to see huge changes anytime soon. From the experiences of other cities I've worked with, including Portland, Oregon, with very similar housing prices and affordability issues. The areas that have been upzoned to fourplexes many years ago, many decades ago, have seen incremental change instead of
So
whole.
in theory, we don't like the state superseding our zoning, but in reality, the impact is much lower than what people would expect.
I think we might be in an interesting case here because we're already proposing something that's almost there.
Yeah, so we did. So you guys don't know this because you weren't on the planning commission last year when we did rewrite some of our density regulations in the updates for the land development code, which have not been approved yet. So we don't have them, right? They're not in our pocket yet because they're still waiting for approval. So, but they're in there. We did up some of the densities, specifically to promote more housing in some of our targeted growth centers or certain districts. So I feel better about that. I hadn't analyzed it that carefully, but I know it was a hot topic and it still is. The bill hasn't made it. I think the Senate version made crossover and it's now in the House, and so it's ongoing. And there's been just so much discussion about it because housing is such a huge topic in the state and really around the country. So thanks for that update. I guess I feel better about it just on our community level. Any other regional planning news or?
Well, I mean, local planning news. The LDC updates. There will staff is currently working on public engagement material for getting everyone up to speed prior to council considering the amendments that were proposed by the planning commission about a year ago. So keep an eye out for that. There will be material up, and we'll be launching a survey for the public to participate in as well.
Great. And so the date for that going to council is sometime
We expect that to
this
be
summer?
mid-June.
Mid-June. Okay. Great. And we might see an approved, updated new land development code for our use sometime in the fall. Then it takes a while.
Well, no. So the moment it is, council warns the amendments for public hearing, we have to start evaluating every project based on both the new and old rules.
Really?
And they will be held temporarily to the tougher of the two standards.
I know that
It's
happened in Burlington for a while. There were some projects that would try to go through on the, while it hadn't been approved yet, but they sort of had to use it.
right.
Rules. Yeah.
It gets complicated for that period of time. We don't expect that period of time to be very long. It's likely, within by August. By August we expect that it either passes or it doesn't.
And then does the regional planning have to approve it, or the state or anybody? Is that that's sort of down the road?
That they have participated already.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Yeah.
I know we used to get, Colchester's every once, or somebody, one of our neighbors would update theirs, and we'd have a shot at looking at it or something, just to make sure we didn't have any questions. All right. Well, that's great. Do you guys have anything to share?
I do not.
All right. Chris, nothing else?
Nothing else.
Anyone else still online? They all left, right?
Nobody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll adjourn the meeting. Any objections?
No objections.
All right. Meeting's adjourned.